Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mark. For this session of Authors and Publishers Speak, I'm filling in for Julia Widoff. My name is James Roumeliotis. And today we have Mark Simon from Orlando, Florida, who happens to be an animation director, artist, author, lecturer, and entrepreneur. Am I missing anything from that list, Mark?
I don't know, it seems like every day I'm doing something else. Just kind of depends on what's coming up at the time. But yeah, it pretty much just sums it up.
Okay. You also seem to have a few book titles under your belt.
Yeah, I've written 10 books. Most of them are on the entertainment industry or for artists. And then one just for anybody and everybody who's ever looked for a job, our book on resumes.
Okay. How did you get your start in writing?
You know, everything I do in the entertainment industry is all about telling stories. And, of course, tell a story, you've got to write. So, I was a syndicated cartoonist for a while as well, and that's, again, telling stories. And from doing that, I wanted to start telling bigger stories. And then I moved out to Hollywood, and I started designing feature films. And at that point, then I was starting to miss the fact I wasn't telling stories as much. I was designing, but I wasn't writing and actually doing much of it. So then I started doing storyboarding for feature films and TV series, and then that built my storyboard company. And then from that, we started getting into developing our own shows and producing animation. So then I started writing more scripts for that, and then I started selling TV shows. And then we had people come to us asking us to help them. So now we work with a lot of people on their projects and telling their stories and how to what they need to do. And along the way, I wanted to be able to also document how to do a number of these things. So I started writing books on it as well.
Well, you certainly have the credentials. I understand you worked for Steven Spielberg. You worked for Nickelodeon, amongst other renowned.
Yeah, I was the second designer at Nickelodeon when we opened up the studios here in Orlando. My wife became one of their top producers. So that was pretty exciting, being at the forefront, because no one knew who Nick was at the time. So we were literally there building the network from the beginning, which was really exciting. And then I actually left Nickelodeon to work with Spielberg on a series called Sequest. It was a semi-futuristic Star Trek underwater is one of the ways we used to call it. I hated that. Executives hated that, but that's really what it was in essence. And it was with Roy Scheider. It was really fun. It was one of my favorite projects.
Great. Are you self-published, by the way, or did you get your publisher to accept your work?
A couple of my books I self-published just because I had the ability to get those out. I do have two major publishers that handle most of my books. I'm with Focal Press for a lot of my industry books, and I'm with Watson Guptill for my facial expressions books, which are really, those are photo reference books for all artists, and those are actually my bestsellers.
Really? Okay. Okay, excellent.
Oh yeah, those are good. Just constant sales, and because every artist needs more reference of faces, and those are really fun books.
Yeah, and those books, of course, are available online. They're available at physical bookstores, bricks and mortar stores, like Barnes and Nobles.
Yeah, it's hard not to find them. They're everywhere. So Amazon is obviously one of the best places to get it because it's so cheap. But yeah, every bookstore I go to carries my facial expressions books. So.
What percentage of, what would you say, is ebooks compared to hardcover or softcover in terms of sales?
As far as sales, it's by far more hard, paper-bound books. A lot of my books are not available as much, although my storyboard and my animation book on how to produce animation are available as ebooks. And I've got a couple other ones that are both, like my book on resumes, Your Resume Sucks. That's available as both, and we still sell more paperback books than we do ebooks. Even though I actually prefer reading ebooks. I've got a huge collection of books, which is one of the reasons I like ebooks, because I read so much that I can't carry all the books I'm reading at one time. So they're all in my tablet, and it makes life so much easier to travel with 100 books.
And then, of course, you have the audience that still prefers to touch paper when it comes to newspapers and books.
Yeah, and I understand that. I prefer a book I can hold if it's one I love comic strips and books. Whether it's Peanuts and BC and Wizard of Id, Marmaduke. All those I love those, and I love having the books. I love being able to flip through it. The textual, the way it looks, everything about it, I love. And I still have my huge collection of comic books, which kind of led me into everything I do now. I've got like 7,000 comic books, and having a comic book in your hand is so much better than looking at a screen. I just love that.
Is that where you get part of your inspiration? Where do you get your biggest inspiration and creativity?
Well, it started definitely from comic books. Being a collector as a kid, that's where I learned to draw, was copying comic books, and my first stories were comic books and comic strips. It was actually probably comic strips before comic books. Peanuts and Dennis the Menace were my first loves, and then BC Wizard of Id and Croc, and then going into Bloom County and all these others. And what's really great is over the last few years, a lot of these creators are actually now friends of mine, which is one of the greatest things in life, is to become friends with your childhood heroes. And so really everything led into everything else. All that led then into my getting into theater in high school, and that gave me, I got some scholarships to college in theater, and then I got into movie making there, and I thought, well, geez, Hollywood sounds really cool, so I graduated and I moved to Hollywood. I thought it sounded great. And I launched my career out there, and I just kind of went on and on and on, and everything leads to everything else. I love telling stories. I love making people laugh. Comedy is really my forte more than anything. I can make you cry whenever I want, so I've worked on a lot of projects, but I prefer to make you laugh. And if I can make you do both within a couple minutes, then I'm really happy.
Yeah. Now, regarding your book, Facial Expressions, how did you come up with the idea of the photo reference book for artists?
Well, I've got a lot of artists that work with me doing storyboard and concept art for film and TV. And like every artist, we're always looking at the mirror to draw ourselves, because we're always, different expressions. And it's hard to draw on yourself all the time. So then you get your close friends and your wife and your kids to pose for you, and then they get tired of it. So I started photographing friends and actors and neighbors, from all different angles, holding a variety of expressions, so that I could see more than just the straight on. I could see what the head looks like from above and from behind, and all the different expressions. And as I was putting together this collection to work from my artists to work from, I thought, we're not the only artists who need this. And I sent a packet to 2 different publishers, and both made offers. And so I literally had them bid against each other for the rights to publish my books.
Did they pose purposely for this, or did you caught them off guard when snapping the photos of their profile?
Oh no, I would take somewhere around 150 photos of each person. I'd have them hold an expression, and I'd photograph them all the way around their head. So I brought them into the studio. It was very specific, low angles, high angles, every angle of every expression. Then I took the best of each to compile these books. And then there's, I also have photos of skulls from every angle, the facial, the muscles of the face.
Right.
I have one of those without the skin on it. And phonemes, the shape of the mouth from all different angles that's never been photographed, referenced before for artists. So, they're very planned.
Why is there no text in your expression books?
Well, I don't want to limit what you get out of it. I've had a number of people say, well, why don't you tell me what expression someone is holding? Well, it doesn't matter what the actor was thinking. What matters is how you see it, what inspires you as the artist. If someone, it's funny because I would give them some expressions, all different things, anger, happy, sad, but I also, all right, you're sitting on the pot and you're straining to get a big one out, right? Does it really matter that's what they're thinking? Or is it, or are you you're drawing the Incredible Hulk and you want to see him trying to pick up Thor's hammer?
Right.
So it doesn't matter what what I think the expression was, or what the actor does, what matters to the artist and what they get out of it and how they can use it in their art.
Okay. And Mark, why don't you detail which faces are for which expressions?
Well, the same reason. It's really, I might want someone looking really sad when I'm looking at the photo, they're actually angry. In fact, it's funny, a couple of the models, when I would ask them to do an expression, what I saw was nothing at all what I'd asked for. And it was fascinating, but it was a great face. So no need for me to tell you what they were doing, because some of them weren't very good actors, but they got great faces.
What I do like is the age progressions gallery. That's quite neat.
Oh, that's one of my favorites. In fact, that was really fun to do, too, because, obviously I started with my own family, with my wife, my kids, and myself, and my family, and digging through other people to see how a face changes, because, we'll often look at our kids and go, what are you going to look like when you get older? Then you look at an older person and think, wow, I bet she was absolutely stunning when she was younger. So here, what I was able to do was take photos from the point when someone is born or 6 months old, all the way through their current age. I've got some people from 3 weeks to 75 years old, seeing how their face evolves. And again, as an artist, that's amazing to be able to see how the elements of the skin and the muscles change and adjust, and hairstyles. It's whether you actually use it for art or not, it's absolutely fascinating to look at.
Absolutely. I have twin daughters who are 8 years old, and one of them was asking me recently, Daddy, what am I going to look like when I'm 14 or 18? And I was wondering, are there any software out there that you can use to determine what a person's going to look like 5, 10, 15 years from now?
There's some really expensive softwares that are out there that actually can make someone look older or make them look younger, that's used in Hollywood. And the name of the software is actually kind of hidden most of the time, because actresses don't want you to know when software is being used to make them look younger or older. But, that's, again, one of the reasons I did the age progression, because you can look at younger and older and see how different lines that's in someone's face get accentuated as they get older. So I've got twin 12-year-old boys, and we kind of do the same thing.
Really,
and wonder, what are you going to look like? And it's fun. It's fun to see.
That's great. Now let's go to your resume book, which is another interesting topic to get into, especially with the job market the way it is these days. Resume books, as we all know, are boring. Why would anybody read yours?
Yeah.
What's different?
What's different is that we get the information across by telling you a story. Again, like I said earlier, I'm all about telling stories. So rather than just this dry text of do this, do that, fill this in, no one has ever read through an entire resume book. I mean, if you ever pick one up, you look for an example and you look for, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? And there are two problems with that. One, unless you understand everything behind what makes a good resume, you're not going to make the right choices. So no one's making the right choices reading through the other resume books. Plus, there's the other element. All the other resume books are wrong. They teach you everything wrong about how to put your resume together. And I can get into that in a second. But what we did by telling a story, we tell the story of a young man who's just graduating from college, being mentored into his career by his father and his father's friends. So by going through that, you will understand why certain things need to be done the way they are. It's actually it's a fun story to go through the way we did it. And so you're brought along and you want to read through the whole thing. And then we have before and afters, which is another thing no other resume book has. We have resumes that suck and resumes that rock. And so we'll show resumes that we've actually gotten, because between my wife and I, we've hired thousands of people over the years in all of our productions. We've seen a lot of really sucky resumes. And so what we do is we take those, or elements of them, and then we show you, all right, how do you take that and make it rock? So you can find, oh, this one looks just like mine, and then we detail, this is all the 8 ways why this really sucks. Here's how you need to redo it to help you get a job.
I guess not everyone's very good at marketing himself or herself. It's quite obvious.
No, they're not. But it still comes down to the fact that every school and every job website tells you the wrong ways to do resumes. What they're wanting to do, they want information to guide them on how not to hire you. They want to find the holes in your background. They also aren't asking for things that are relevant. They want to know what was your last job. Who cares what your last job was if it doesn't support what you want to do? Don't ever put your jobs in order on your resume, in order of when you did them. That's the worst thing in the world to do. The first job example job on your resume needs to support what it is that you want to do. Because no one reads resumes, we glance at them. And if I'm glancing at your resume, do you really want the only thing I see to be something that's not relevant at all to the job you want? Hell no! You want the first thing there to grab your attention and go, wow, this person's perfect for this job. They've already done it. Doesn't matter if you did it 10 years ago or 3 months ago. If you did it, you did it. It needs to be in order of relevance. And that's one of the key things. The way we look at it, we break down probably 40 different things in putting resumes together in our book that bust every myth you've ever been taught. And it's funny, we've had people just scream at us, "You're teaching people, no one's going to get a job. I won't even look at a resume this way." And 5 minutes into, 10 minutes into talking to me about it, they go, "Wow, you're right. I had no idea." It makes such perfect sense. It's common sense, which is so lacking in what so many people do, and we just approach it that way. And we tested it in a number of ways. We had an executive at Disney say that Disney, hires a huge number of people, would never even put a resume like your style, would never even go through the system. And then my wife got hired as a manager at Disney with that exact resume. So, if
you know what works.
People might tell you, well, it does.
What's your take on cover letters? Do you touch on that subject matter at all?
Yeah, we touch on it a little bit. You know, it's bullshit. They all say the same thing, and almost no one ever pays attention to them unless it really is you coming through. There's one of my assistants actually hired from her cover letter because she was so effusive, and it was a personality. It was so sweet and so energetic, and so that caught my attention. But most people's, they're just, I want you to hire me, and it's nothing about you. I want to know you. I want to know your personality. So most of them are just boring. It's kind of the same thing on a lot of resumes. People have an objective statement, which again is just a total bullshit thing that should never be on a resume. Because I know what your objective is. If you hand me a resume, you have one objective. You want a job. All right, I don't really need you to tell me on this piece of paper you want a job. I know that. So there's so many things that are just absolutely useless on resumes.
Employers, they want to know what the candidate is going to bring to the table, correct?
Yeah, they do. And the main thing they want to know of all the resume books, because we researched a lot of resume books before we decided to write ours. I found one other resume book, and I don't even remember the name of it because most of it was crap. But there's only one other book that even mentions the most important thing on your resume. Not a single other book even has the most important thing, and it's crazy. Let me ask you.
Sure.
What do you think is the most important thing on the top of your resume?
It's basically what you want, what you can offer the company. It's what you're able to do for the company. What is it that you're going to make that's going to make such a big difference? Why you versus another candidate?
Exactly. But what that means, to sum that up, the job title.
Your so-called unique selling proposition, your USP.
Well, but the uniqueness comes later. The most important thing is job title. Because you were saying, what you can do. Okay. You're a salesman. You're a storyboard artist. You're a copy editor. Whatever it is, it's that job title. No other resume book even covers job titles. They don't even have them. They just have people's names. Most people I talk to, and employers in schools, all teach the most important thing is your name. You know what? I don't care what your name is. Do you really think I'm going to go out and look for a James to hire? No. If I'm looking to hire someone, I have a job position to hire. I'm looking for a prop master. I'm going to go through a pile of resumes. The only ones I'm even looking at are the ones that say prop master. If you don't have a job title, I'm not even looking at it. That's how important it is. So if you don't even bother putting a title to tell me what it is that you can do for me, you're not even being looked at. And 95% of resumes don't even have a job title. You want to get looked at and interviewed? That's a pretty simple change to do.
Well, certainly it sounds like a very good guide for those who are kind of in the dark when it comes to job hunting and putting together proper resumes. This would be an ideal book for those type of individuals.
Yeah, and it's not even people who are in the dark. It's even for people who think they know what they're doing. Because I can guarantee you, most everyone who's going to see this, your resume sucks, which is why we titled it that. I see so many of them. Most of them suck, and you don't even know it.
That's quite a
Although, after what I just said, more... Well, it's funny. We were interviewed on NBC a couple of years ago, one of the morning shows, about it, and the host couldn't even say the title of the book, so she kept throwing it to me. She kept saying, Mark, what's the title? Your resume sucks. And of course, I love saying it. But, and it actually made a fun thing in the interview that she wouldn't. But, it catches your attention, but it's also true.
That's great. Now, do you self-promote your books, or do you have a publicist?
I did something a lot of publicists don't even want to hear. I hired a publicist to teach me how to do her job so that I understand it. All authors are their own publicists, whether they realize it or not. You are in the marketing business if you want to sell any books. Because unless you're Stephen King, the publishers will not promote your book. They're not in that business. And they very seldom will ever put any money whatsoever into promoting any books. And that's one of the harsh realities for authors that they don't realize. And it's a harsh one for me. You have to always be pushing your own book in any way that you can. In fact, I've been seeing more and more authors are actually shooting sizzle reel videos that promote their book. Like the guy, and I don't remember his name, but the guy who wrote the Meg books about the megalodon that comes up from the deep. He did these incredible videos that get a huge amount of hits, and then it promotes his book at the end. And those are great ideas. I've been seeing more and more of that. So, I write articles about the subject, and then in the byline at the end, I put, author of this book in this book. Or I'll get on interviews and I'll talk about it, or if there's something relevant that comes up, like if there's a big thing that hits the news about how many people are unemployed, we'll do an article about how a lot of people are unemployed because they don't know how to look for work, and then we promote, by the author of Your Resume Sucks. We'll find a connection to news or some common event or any number of ways to get out there, and you have to as an author.
Now, which method or which approach or medium has worked best for you? Is it social media? Is it interviews? Is it blogs? Or a combination?
It's hard to say. I mean, probably the most consistent for me is writing articles. I write a lot of articles for different industry periodicals, and because it's always out there, and it stays out there in front of people. Every once in a while, I'll write something that goes viral, and they'll hit blogs all over, and you look for those. But you can never plan anything to go viral because no one knows what's going to go viral. I wrote one article, that might not ever be seen, but there was another one that I wrote that overnight hit 400,000 blogs. People started talking about it.
Really?
It cost me a fortune because of how many people hit our website. It cost me $1,200 in one day because of excessive numbers of people who were on our website. Which is
something you can't control.
Hard to swallow.
But it's something you cannot control, right?
You can't. But the value of that publicity is huge. You look for that.
What's the next goal you would like to achieve with your writing?
That's a really good question. I want more of my stories to get out. I create TV shows, and I want more of my shows to go out there, and that's a big part of the writing. We just wrapped up a script yesterday for a client that is one of the best we've worked on. My head writer, Wayne Carter, did the script on it. And it's amazing. It's one of those where, as I was going through it, I was like, I can't wait to read the next page. Working on development, on getting projects like that out there, every next one I do, I want to be better than the last one. So, luckily I'm in an industry where I can consistently tell stories. So I don't know if there's one goal. I've set a lot of goals. I wanted to have a book published. All right, I've had 10. I wanted to get a show on TV. Well, I did. I wanted to work in the movies. I've worked on 36 features. You always have those particular goals. Well, I've reached most of my individual goals. So I guess, one of them is I want, a show, a hit primetime show on TV. I haven't had that. I've worked on them, but they haven't been mine. So, that's a big goal. For my own writing, I get a lot out of every project that I write on. So, the next one needs to be my best one.
Right. In closing, what advice would you have for potential authors based on your experience?
Write what you know. It's a classic, but all of our clients, it's the biggest thing we work on is you're going to be best at writing something you're passionate about, knowledgeable about. And like the project that we start working on development tomorrow, it came from a client who kept telling me all these stories about these misadventures he has in life. And I said, you're just Captain Chaos here. The amount of stuff that comes in, we need to develop something around that. And he totally all of a sudden started getting into it, and all of a sudden everything he started coming up with was better because he was passionate about it, because he knew it. A show that my wife created that I just love is based on stories she used to tell our kids when they were going to bed at night about these twin toddlers who would turn into superheroes to protect their mom, and they were masters at martial arts. Well, I've got twins, or we have twins, who were black belts in Taekwondo. So it was all based on what we were doing as a family anyway, and the best stories come out of that. And then when you start putting your package together, you don't need to write an entire book to pitch it. In fact, you very seldom do. So make a great smaller presentation, but half of it needs to be marketing. Who's the market? Where do you reach them? Believe it or not, those publishers, they want to know that you have access to 150 different ways to get your book out. What magazines, what groups, what industries. You need to tell them. And most authors think, well, they know that. You know what? They probably don't. And by far the biggest part of my pitches when I'm pitching to a publisher is marketing. I've learned. And then I sell almost every book that I take out there because of it.
So it would help, and you would recommend that you put together a written plan.
Oh, yeah. And the nice thing is most publishers actually have an outline of that they want to see, and you can either just call them, or a lot of them now even have it online, and that you can actually download their book proposal. Okay. And make it big. My proposals are never less than about 60 pages, and that's not the book itself. That's all the information around and about the book, and the marketing is 60 pages. And then, whatever it is for the actual text, a few sample chapters.
And writing a book shouldn't be all about chasing the money, correct?
No, it's the wrong reason. There's no passion to chasing money. Passion is telling a story. The passion is trying to change the world. The passion is telling people information about something that you're passionate about. Like when I wrote my book on storyboarding, I've written it 3 times, and I have a passion for it, on how to tell the story, and it's huge. It's much more in-depth than any other book has even come close to in it. Why? Because I'm passionate about my industry. So you'll always do better when it's something you're passionate about. If it's great, the money will come.
Wonderful. Well, Mark, you definitely have a compelling story to tell people. You have a very intriguing background, and I wish you continued success with your endeavors.
I appreciate that, James. Thanks much. It's been a lot of fun.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks.